recovery. What we call is recovery is still to reveal whether it is going back to the status quo or it's going to be more green and sustainable. So, but the industry has an opportunity here, obviously. What we make out of it, whether the industries are keen on doing that, these are the questions. And hopefully we will have some interesting presentations. So over to Aisa to give I think it will be more perspective from the Indian context. It seems to be world economics, but I would like to see what this says. Just to give set some ground rule, as in previous session, if you could put your questions in the text, and then obviously we can go through that. It's easier, I think, rather than opening the floor straight away to questions. Over to Aisa, you know the timing, so I will just give a 5 minutes if you are running out of time. Thanks.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing team for giving me this platform to share my presentation. I, Dr. Aisha Badruddin, Assistant Professor, Integral University, Lucknow, India, take this opportunity to express myself on the topic, a content analysis on coverage of low carbon post-COVID-19 recovery measures across sectors in world economies. I will begin with the question that why low carbon recovery. Here, this figure is visible in front of everybody, I hope. This I have taken from the Asian Development Bank report. So what this tells about, this is the entire scenario of the world which the world is going across. So here we can see that earlier we had the climate crisis, or the which we know as the climate change. So we already had this kind of crisis in the year 2015. The world came up with the Paris Agreement, Sendai framework, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Such kind of frameworks in order to beat the climate crisis or to meet the climate change. So after that, in the year 2019, the entire world get arrested into the coronavirus that we all are aware about. Everybody must have been influenced somewhere or the other with this virus. So COVID-19 crisis, again, one crisis we were going through, the climate crisis, and another crisis we are facing currently is the COVID-19 crisis. COVID-19 crisis calls for the response, immediate response, the recovery, and the transformation. And it landed the entire world into thinking about the recovery and the transformation in the purview of the existing COVID-19 crisis, which the world is currently dealing with, and the earlier or the still existing climate crisis as well. So in the purview of both of these crises, we all need to think about the recovery, what this recovery pathway is going to be, how it is going to be. We are here left with the two options. Either we can go for businesses as usual, and very unfortunately, we can have the history repeated over and again of these crises, or another or the more sustainable way is low carbon resilient recovery, which will lead the world in compatibility of 1.5 degrees centigrade to 2 degrees centigrade.
Aisha, one quick, I think it seems people and even myself, we are not able to see your slides moving. Which slide are you on?
Sir, I'm on the first slide, COVID-19 recovery.
Fourth slide?
First slide, first one.
So you're still on the cover slide or the second?
The second slide, sir.
Second. So maybe you could just try once more, move one slide up and down. Does it make difference to us? Could you scroll through yours? Maybe go back to your previous slide and move back.
Is it visible now, sir? COVID-19 recovery slide. The figure has been shown here.
No, this is a problem. It seems even in the previous session, I couldn't see one of the presentation slides. So is it a technical thing across, or maybe for your specific one? I don't. What would you suggest your recommendation?
I could.
You could run a slide.
Yeah, I could share the slides. Yeah, from my side.
Let's try that. Okay, Aisha.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, you stop sharing. I will start sharing your slides. I think I have it from here. Yeah, I have it here, so I can a second. Can you see now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I can move it to the full screen. Okay. Yeah.
I think you're gonna end up with the same result as Aisha. I think you should start the presentation first
Mhm.
and then share
No,
that specific window.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's moving now?
It's moving, yeah.
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 It's moving.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sir. So here we are left with the two options for the recovery pathway or the transformation in the economy, whatever we want to. We are left with the two options. Either we can go for the carbon intensive recovery, that is, we will go with the businesses as usual as they are moving, and we can have the crisis again and again because we are already dealing with the climate crisis and we need to manage it at large. And or we can have a recovery in a better and more sustainable manner with low carbon resilient recovery, which is almost 1.5 degrees centigrade to 2 degrees centigrade compatible as far as the previous businesses are being concerned here. So please move towards the next slide. Okay, without wasting much of the time, I'll directly move towards the research methodology here. The objective of this research is to analyze what and how the researchers are covering in the context of the low carbon recovery pathways in the post COVID-19 scenario. And I have made a comparison across the categories of content. The categories of content here I have taken, first of all, I would like to tell I have done the content and thematic analysis here. And the unit of categories I have taken as the articles which I have mostly downloaded from the Web of Sciences, the reports, policy brief, technical notes, and other. The other category here includes speeches, webinar presentations, commentaries, perspectives, research letter, fact sheets, and blogs. The total number of content which I have analyzed in my study is 116 articles all together, articles, reports, policy brief, and altogether it's 116 content. The duration of the publication, I have only taken the articles or the reports which have been published in the year 2020 or 2021. The statistical analysis here which I have used in my study is Crystal-Wallace test, taking the grouping variable as the content, that is the categories of the content. And the statistical software which I have used in my study is NVivo for the content analysis and SPSS for further statistical analysis. So please move on to the next slide. The themes I have identified in the through the content analysis using the NVivo, these are the themes which are being mentioned here. The carbon emission, electricity, energy, these are the major themes which have been focused across all the categories of the content. The null hypothesis which I have addressed here is the coverage of carbon emission. Here, that is all the content is same across all the categories of the content. So please move towards the next slide. Okay. This is the result of the hypothesis taken, and the chi-square is the result of the chi-star system that has been shown. Let me give a brief of it. The development, electricity, energy, recovery, and sustainable themes are they say to reject the null hypothesis as the themes. The null hypothesis is retained, which means that the coverage of development, electricity, energy, and recovery and sustainable themes varies across the coverage of these themes varies across the categories of the content. So please move to the next slide. This is the result of the analysis and here analysis and interpretation. As far as the spatial focus of the content published about low carbon recovery is concerned, the themes in a spatial focus are the countries, global industries, and sector, which means that all the categories, that is article, report, policy brief, technical notes, and other categories all are focusing on, all are talking about these themes as far as the spatial focus is concerned. If we talk about the primary focus of the content, the primary focus is on carbon emission, green, and measures for recovery. Here it is talking about. So please move towards the next slide. Sectoral focus of the content is the sector basically covered by articles, reports across the categories of the content is electricity, energy, fuel, and power. And the frames used in the contents are development. These are the frames on which the entire papers are being, or the researches are being conducted. Development, economic, impact, recovery, and sustainability. As I've already told, the rest of the, apart from the recovery and sustainability, rest of the themes like development, economic, and impact, they have the same coverage throughout, and recovery and sustainable differs among the categories of the content. So please move towards the next slide. Content including public and policy published about low carbon recovery. Public and policy, both the themes are equally represented, equally covered across all the content categories. And if we talk about the overall sentiment of the low carbon recovery, here I need to tell overall sentiment means four categories I have here of the sentiments: very negative, moderately positive, and very positive content. So here in my study, I have found that the content emotion, if we talk about, or sentiment we talk about, it is very negative and moderately negative. Very few articles are moderately positive or very positive. That are insignificant coverage, we can say. Very negative and moderately negative because most of the contents are talking about the lack of actions, the action required. They are talking about the issues, they are talking about the challenges. So that is why they are being termed as very negative and moderately negative, and very positive and moderately positive content are very few in number as far as the number of articles which I have covered in my study. So please move on to the next. Okay. Up till now, I have covered, as far as my research objective is being considered, I have up till now I have discussed about how it is being covered. Now I'll be talking about what is being covered. Okay. So first here I have a study which is being conducted by FICCI in the year 2020, which shows the India roadmap on low carbon and sustainable mobility. This basically focus on the recovery pathway, focusing on the transport sector. The focus of it is on transport sector, which talks about action at all levels, that is public, private, and individual. Say for example, all these steps which are required, all these strategies or the measures which have to be implemented as far as the roadmap is being concerned, they are very well visible on the slide itself. But I'll be talking about the gist of it. Say for example, public for framing, the role of public here is for framing the low carbon energy strategies. The role of individual here is for avoiding vehicles. Say for example, if the person is traveling for the sake of shopping, for commuting to the friend's place or some nearby locality, so they can avoid doing this. They can avoid such kind usage of vehicles for such kind of nearby commuting. So which is obviously going to influence the air pollution. Okay, so for commuting, shopping, and assessing services, and private for leveraging finance. Okay, the next, so please move to the next. Okay, the next here is the Triple GI technical report. This is focusing on the COVID-19 recovery plan. The basic focus of this COVID-19 recovery plan is on application of green stimulus priorities, transition of subsidies from fossil fuel to renewable, transition of subsidies from fossil fuel to renewable energy, green deals, phasing out of coal, stimulation of green innovation and green jobs, solar powered irrigation, and upgradation of health facilities with clean energy. Next, please. Okay, here in the literature, I have quoted here the case study, which is being case studies which are being conducted by O. Collins et al. There are certain case studies being conducted across these sectors. So first sector here is energy and electricity supply, which shows the low carbon intervention, high carbon interventions across the sectors. Here in this, the finding of this particular case study is in the energy and electricity sector is total of 45 low carbon spending measures identified in 17 out of 50 countries and 32 high carbon spending measures in 14 out of 50 countries, as this research has been conducted till October 2020. This is the data which is till October 2020. So here further emphasis can be given. Further emphasis can be given on the high carbon interventions, and the number can be more reduced to low carbon interventions. Next slide, please. Another sector is land-based transport sector. Here in this sector, the same presentation is same of the low carbon intervention and the high carbon interventions. The finding tells us the total of 35 low carbon spending measures identified in 18 out of 50 countries and 41 high carbon spending measures in 21 out of 50 countries. So, and the rest of the major contribution of the countries in the low carbon interventions and the high carbon interventions are mentioned here. Next slide, please, sir. So it's not visible. Next sector is aviation. In aviation, this is a sector which requires the attention. Here in this aviation sector, total of 3 low carbon spending measures identified in 2 out of 50 countries and 48 high carbon spending measures in 23 out of 50 countries. Okay, so here this is a very attention-seeking kind of a sector where low carbon interventions are highly required as far as the proportion of the high carbon intervention is being very high here. So it can be altered into the low carbon interventions. So please, next slide. Industry. In industry also, a total of 25 low carbon R&D spending measures identified in 13 out of 50 countries and 47 neutral R&D spending measures in 17 out of 50 countries. Here I would like to mention one thing. We don't have, as far as a comparison is made across the sectors which I have already told, here we don't have high carbon interventions so much in this sector. We have a neutral kind of measure here. So these neutral measures without more spending or more investment can be changed to the low carbon R&D spending measures. So they can easily be converted into, and we can have the 25 more than 25, and these 47 neutral can also be converted into the low carbon interventions. Next slide, please, sir. Now next comes is building and construction center. Here the finding of this particular sector tells total of the case study of this particular sector tells total of 14 low carbon retrofit spending measures identified in 9 out of 50 countries and 9 high carbon infrastructure spending measures excluding transport and high carbon energy in 5 out of 50 countries as at October 2020. Okay, here in furthermore, I'll be covering on this sector also. A lot of measures are being taken into account for building and construction sector because it has a high potential for reduction of the, it is contributing already towards the carbon emission, and since it is highly contributing towards this, it has an opportunity also of reduction of carbon emission. So there is a great scope in this sector. So please move towards the next. The last is land use and environmental protection. Here, total of 25 low carbon spending measures identified as green spaces and natural infrastructure investment identified in 11 out of 50 countries. Here we don't see much of high carbon interventions, but it is in 11 countries out of 50 countries only. So more countries can also be covered under this, and they can also go for such kind of initiatives as far as land use and environmental protection is being concerned. So please move towards the next.
Okay, Aisha,
Okay,
I'll give
here
you 5 more minutes. Hey, just because you started and had some problems. So 5 more minutes, please. We are running 5 minutes behind, but that's all means 5 minutes more. Yeah.
Very soon I'll finish it off, sir. I just require 5 more minutes. Thank you so much. Okay, sir. The another study here I have quoted is by the McKinsey and Company, so which shows the estimated capital mobilized and impact of low carbon stimulus measures for a European country. This is basically for the European country. So here they are showing the sectors and the amount of capital, estimated amount of capital which has to be mobilized in order to create more jobs, and that will add to gross value added GVA, which is going to create the GVA. Okay, so please move towards the next slide. The initiatives which can be, the measures which can be taken into account, these are mentioned here sector wise. Okay, one important thing I would like to tell here is they have concluded, McKinsey and Company, they have concluded that the important conclusion here is the combination of pushes and pulls are required, which means that it is not only at the individual level or one single kind of contribution is sufficient enough. It is the combination of pushes and pulls. Pushes are the government interventions, that is the regulatory framework, which is also required, and along with it, the pulls are the fundings. So with the combination of the pushes, that is the regulatory framework, and these fundings, these kind of benefits can be greatly provided to the people. So please, next slide. Okay, this is the recovery solution given for by the UNEP. Here are the 6 sectors which are being shown here. These 6 sectors have the potential of limiting the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade. These are the 6 sectors. And one small example I would like to quote here is they have given, as far as the study is being concerned, they have given the solution at every level. It is not the duty of an individual or the government or the private sector. It is the duty of everybody, either at the private level, public level, or the individual level. A small example here is I came across a store, Berlin surplus store. This is a store which is selling out the products which are nearby expiry, or which fruit and vegetables which are misshapen, or the jars or cans which are not properly labeled. So they are selling these products at a discount of up to 80%. So this a small effort contributes towards the reduction of food products at large. So, and one more thing, we should also avoid for going for buy one get one free kind of a product, because in order to prevent the overconsumption of the things. Next slide, please, sir. Okay, here is the conclusion. This includes majorly the role of public and private policy is most important as far as the recovery pathways are being concerned, and every content is basically focusing on the challenges. They are talking about the challenges which the economies are facing, and the recovery pathways are given for a sector in each and every sector. But along with the challenges, that is why the overall sentiment of the content is came out to be as negatively and moderately negative and very negative. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me the time. That's all from my side.
Thanks, Aisha. Hello. Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned, please keep on having your questions in the chat box. That's easier. Next speaker for us is, again, I don't know where he is physically, but it's from University of Tehran, Ali Zamani. And the topic he has is efficiency analysis in steel manufacturing. I wonder it is to build back better in terms of more larger infrastructures, I guess. So steel is always needed. Over to you, Ali. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. You hear me?
Yes.
So I share my screen to present this paper.
I think from previous experience, if you open your slides and then screen share, that's easier.
Yes, you have the slides.
Yeah, we can see.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this presentation. I am delighted to present our paper entitled Efficiency Analysis in Steel Manufacturing with Undesirable Outputs. Let me introduce the authors of this paper. The first author is me, Ali Zamani from University of Tehran, PhD student at University of Tehran, Mohammad Reza Taqizadeh, professor at University of Tehran, Adel Hatami Marbini from De Montfort University, and Sayyid Mushtaba Sajjadi from Coventry University. My presentation is divided into these parts that you can see. First, I elaborate the introduction and problem statement of the research. Then I look at the look short to research framework and data gathered, and then I elaborate a literature review and literature gap that it formed the research novelty and innovation. Finally, I elaborate the research analysis and results of this work. Let me begin with explaining why this work was important. We know that steel industry is an asset-intensive industry. It means that breakdown of heavy equipment may have a very bad impact on the factory. So what is the solution? Based on the literature, performance evaluation, its solution, and especially continuous performance evaluation that can lead to sustainable competitive advantage. In addition, one of the main problem of each manufacturing unit is the correct management of resource, and again, the solution is performance evaluation or measurement. We know that performance have the same definition with efficiency analysis, and one of the techniques that can be used for this work is data envelopment analysis, or DEA. From these explanations, we designed the research plan and research propositions, and also we select the research case that is gold bar iron and steel development in Iran. To emphasize the importance of research and technique that we used, we did search on the scientific database at Web of Knowledge. As shown in this slide, a tree map DA was implemented in loss of area and science. That we can see the importance of this technique for various areas and scientific regions. And also, we can see in this slide the importance of DEA in every country, that it can be concluded that in Iran, this number of papers are published by using the DEA. COVID-19 has both negative and positive impact on iron and steel industry. So the question is here, what's the positive impact and also what's the negative impact? As shown in this figure, the positive influence is related to decreasing the CO2 or carbon dioxide emissions, and also the positive impact is related to decreasing the production volume because of the COVID-19. Here are expressed the research propositions from hypothesis to purpose. Based on the literature and the research design. We didn't have a hypothesis in this research, but the question are, what are the most important regions in production process of direct reduced iron in Gologoar Iron and Steel Development Company? The second question is, what is the efficiency of each decision-making unit? And the last question is, what are the target values for all components of process? To answer this question, we structure the main purpose of this study, which is efficiency analysis in steel manufacturing with undesirable outputs. So the main steps of this study are shown in this flowchart. In stage 1, we visited the factory and the production site. And from this step, we recognized the problem and the challenge. Then we gathered the full consumption and production data of the factory, which is Gologoar Iron and Steel Development Company. Then we extended a mathematical model to solve it and reach to the purpose of the study, which means calculate the efficiency of all DMUs, and also we analyzed the efficiency values for all DMUs. You can see in this slide the way of gathering data. We used the data that saved in the factory PLC, and there was no tools for gathering data. Hence, not need to approve the validity and reliability of this. So, what's the data involvement analysis? A technique for efficiency analysis, we know, and as shown in this figure, this tool has various approach. The approach that we selected in this paper was the network data involvement analysis. The main question that I should answer is, what is the main differences between DEA and network DEA? For example, consider this process that's shown in this slide. This system has inputs, internal process, and outputs. The classic DEA just consider these inputs and these outputs and don't consider the internal process. So this can to non-realistic efficiency. The solution is network DEA, and this approach consider all inputs, internal process, and also all outputs. So the mathematical model that we extended has two main features: reducing the input of each stage, such as water, electricity, and gas consumption, and reducing undesirable outputs, such as the above, and increase the final output of production process. In this slide, we can see the research novelty and gaps that are in the literature. We use the network DEA for calculating the realistic efficiency, I said it before, and we used an approach and mathematical model to consider both undesirable and desirable outputs. The network production was a complex process, and this process was modeled for the first time. Finally, we suggest the target values for all control variables that can lead to efficient completely. So this is the production network of Goligar iron and steel development that has 6 main stages. Every stage have its special input that can lead to outputs. The main feed of this factory is iron pellets, and the main material as energy are water, electricity, and gas. I said about the network, and for managing the time, I passed this slide. This is the mathematical model that was extended and have one objective function and 5 constraints. We had 365 DMUs in this work that were the days of the 1 year in Iran. And for solving this model, we used Lingo software. And now I want to express the finding of this research. This table shows the descriptive analysis for each month. For example, for month 1, the average of efficiency values is almost 12%, and etc. Especially, we provided the statistical indices for analyzing the efficiency values. For example, the median index or standard deviation or maximum or minimum, and also the range. This is the overall condition of the factory that we can conclude that the performance was good generally. As you see, the efficiency of all DMUs are shown in this figure. The overall condition of the factory based on the efficiency index is good almost. In addition, we analyze the efficiency values for each month and investigate the process of efficiency. For example, in month 1, the performance of the factory is unstable and has a high degree of change. So which reasons lead to this performance? Formal vacations in Iran in that year, reformer breakdown, and predictive maintenance of the factory. But in month 6, the performance is stable and has no high degree of change. On data analysis, as we said, that question suggested the target values for all DMUs and all components of the factory to be efficient. For example, if components of monoxide carbon be these values, it can be lead to make that DMU efficient with the efficiency of 100%, and etc. for the other components and DMUs that were in the model. So I review the research question, which were what are the most important regions in the production process of DRI. I said the 6 core regions. What are the efficiency of each DMUs? It calculated by network DA model via Lingo software. And what are the target values for all components of the process? That we suggested the target values for all components. So one of the critical questions is, how does this research alleviate the negative effect of COVID-19 on the iron and steel industry? The necessity of efficiency measurement can lead to good performance of each asset that can be cleared and can lead to a good financial situation, which is dimension of economical sustainability, and decreasing the carbon dioxide emissions by suggesting the target value for control variables, and also increasing the production volume. All of these can lead to sustainable in COVID-19 and also post-COVID-19. So in this slide, I suggest methods and methodologies for future studies. We used a model to solve the efficiency analysis based on the data of only 1 year. But the other researchers can do this from the data of the factory from the beginning. We use the network DEA approach, but a Slack-based model that future work studies can implement them to measure the realistic efficiency. And this work was designed and implemented in Iran, one factory that can be implemented in other countries and also other industries. So thank you for your attention.
Many thanks, Ali. Okay, so you have finished ahead of time. I was going to give you warning, which is good. So yes. Now we have some break because I don't know, means Subesh, what's your call? Means you want to start early or leave 5 minutes for questions in between? Means we can start early for the next presentation.
I think we start early and continue towards the end. We'll take the question at the end.
Yeah, I don't think we have cross panels of people coming from another room to join here, so it should be all here.
Yeah, okay. All of that. Yeah.
Thanks. So now we move to another topic, which is micro enterprises. So a need assessment for micro enterprises to facilitate sustainable energy uptake in Wula community of Boki, which is in Nigeria, using AHP. So over to Justin. And again, if you have your presentation first on the screen and then share your screen, that would help, I guess. So you can start now, please. And please put your, I see very few questions so far, so maybe we need to make it more, otherwise it will be onus on me to ask more questions. So help me.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Subesh, and everyone for the opportunity to present this. But first, let me be sure that you can see my slide, please.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll be presenting a need assessment of micro enterprises to facilitate sustainable energy uptake in Wula community. It's in southern part of Nigeria, that's Cross River State. My name is Justin Udier, and I'm presenting on behalf of Mohammed Mazar and Peter Batiang. Mohammed is from Nottingham Trent University, is my colleague, while Peter is from University of Calabar in Nigeria, where this research is going on. So as part of intro, I'm from Nottingham Business School, Nottingham Trent University. You can see our city campus, or part of our city campus, from aerial view of it right there. This presentation is just a little bit of our overall research we are conducting in this community. So what we did first was to conduct a need assessment to enable us understand the priorities of community needs by the community before we can approach our research probably even better in terms of sustainable energy suggestion or recommendations for the community. So this is just a little bit of the overall research that is going on at the moment. So as part of introduction, stakeholder community engagement is essential for the acceleration of sustainable energy uptake in rural communities because it enhances wider public participation and facilitates economic prosperity among enterprises in local communities. And we believe that effective needs assessment is one of the approaches that can be taken, to study possible issues affecting the prosperity of SMEs or MSMEs in rural communities as well as in urban areas. Ordinarily, this study explores the hierarchies, like I said, just to understand the primary needs in terms of hierarchical placement for micro enterprises in this particular community in Boki and southern parts of Nigeria. So it's a rainforest area. If you can see the map, is one of those areas that will remain green from January till December, year in, year out. The main activities there will include all that are relevant to the rainforest. So the population within this particular area is about 10,000 people, and it hosts one of those protected species of plants and animals that are endangered all over the world, which is the reason why we're attracted to this area, or one of the reasons anyway. So the aim of this study was, I put that was in that clause for a reason, to understand the needs of micro enterprises and recommend sustainable energy uptake options that attract local and national interventions. And the idea was also to further examine opportunities for co-creating sustainable energy solutions for the community, with a view to minimizing their carbon footprints and environmental impacts on, or social impacts on the rainforest. And of course, is to align sustainable economic prosperity with SDGs number 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, and of course 13, goal 13, which is climate action. The overall is, we think, to facilitate the post-COVID-19 recovery for micro enterprises in this rural area as well. So the method we took first was to conduct an observation, moving around the community to see if there are possible sustainable energy potentials. We also conducted focus groups with community leaders and operators of SMEs or MSMEs. I think ours is MSMEs, micro enterprises, and of course one-to-one interviews to gather more data that will enable us to make informed decision on how to engage the community with our research. So what we did initially was to conduct a depth research to enable us scope relevant needs from literature that are very typical of a rural African community, and then our research highlighted the following to be relevant, among others anyway. So electricity, which is energy and our focus, social housing, access roads, educational facilities, health and well-being, security, and of course food and water. So we decided to test these 7 to see which one will be of most interest, just to enable us to make that decision that we don't want to import what the community might not actually be in need of. So that was the reason we had to do this experiment from the beginning. So like we said, we did observatory investigation to assess sustainable energy potentials. We conducted 4 structured focus groups to prioritize these 7 selected alternatives. We call them alternatives or needs in this case, and one-to-one interviews with 20 enterprises in the community, including community leaders. And this approach is, we think, is from literature sustainable for the co-creation of energy uptake strategy for communities and local micro enterprises. So we apply AHP. AHP is one of a multi-criteria decision-making approaches. It was implemented through a structured focus groups or through structured focus groups and one-to-one interviews involving some stratified owners of SMEs in the community. The group systematically, which was a little bit difficult for us to make them to do this because most of them were not too literate enough to understand the process. So it took us a long time to make them to prioritize these selected needs through the pairwise comparison approach. However, AHP allowed for independent but also collaborative sharing of views in an objective approach by all participants. So if you see that, that is a general schematic of an AHP strategy or AHP approach. Number one is to set the goal and then get the alternative or factors to be pairwise compared, and then the results will be filtered through as choices, either choice 1, 2, or 3. So we had 7 alternatives to compare. But in another way around, this is not detailed enough, we could use also different factors to rank alternatives, but that was not the case here. Is that a little bit different from this approach? So our result and emerging issues. So the result shows that instead, we thought from the beginning that maybe energy was going to be the priority. And the reason we had that thought is because the community is totally disconnected from any form of energy. So people use, in our last year presentation, we showed how they depend on fossil energy 100% within the community. And there is an attempt now to see if solar energy can be also imported. So we thought energy was going to be the priority, but unfortunately, results shows that security is the most top need of the community, followed by education before our intended factor, which is electricity or energy, and the rest, health and well-being. Of course, access road was a list with a 2.2 value. So we look at these findings: security, education, and of course energy, a little bit carefully to see if there are some intricacies or relationship between them, or why the people thought security, education, and energy could have been in that ranking. That is the outcome of our analysis. So in terms of security, insecurity in Nigerian situation or Nigerian communities is a crisis at the moment, and we think that undermines economic development, including smooth operations of micro enterprises. In Wula community, for instance, it is located far from where we have some of these crises going on in southern part of Nigeria, where we thought security concerns would have been about maybe the medium or somewhere at the bottom. But research suggests otherwise, meaning that security could be a national concern at the moment instead of regional. So recent security threats are blamed on kidnapping. There are issues of banditry, header terrorism, or what they call header farmer crisis, and of course, cyber crimes. These have exacerbated tensions across the country. That's the reason why we have that result, with severe impacts on micro enterprises, as well as literature is suggesting. So cascading impacts on this is unemployment, and then of course unemployment rates at the moment, as reported in Bloomberg by Olorobi this year, is about 33%, and that is quite high. Of course, it weakens government sustainable energy intervention programs and created or could create more youth vulnerability to all devices. And we argue that insecurity hinders implementation of sustainable energy solutions across the communities, and this could have impact on our own research program as well, and that is currently being discussed by the team. In terms of education and its implications for micro enterprises and why it was ranked second, education is important to these people, to micro enterprises operators and their operations, and is considered as a tool for local capacity building. It enables awareness creation, an essential indicator for successful sustainable energy intervention anywhere in the world that will apply. So it is crucial. It is important that it plays a role in community development and could have influenced participant views in our study. Unfortunately, however, insecurity elements are targeted at schools. If you are current, you know how children have been kidnapped from schools, and then you can imagine that the issue of security and education are now really interlinked in this area, especially it happens in rural communities, unfortunately. So we still ask ourselves, does energy still matter? Even though it was ranked third with about 20% again value, we thought that yes, energy access increases average household income through entrepreneurship, and lack of access to sustainable energy has remained a perennial crisis against micro enterprises and investment in sustainable alternatives in this community and in other adjacent communities as well. So our assessment revealed alternative sustainable energy potential, and when we move around from observation, discover that wind energy can be harnessed, as well as sun energy, because though it's a forest area where the community is quite open and could receive reasonable maximum, I should say, amount of sunshine per day, or what people in biology could discuss as photoperiodism. So sustainable energy could be deployed for sustainable security solutions. That's the argument we are now trying to build up, that of course, even if it is third in the ranking, it is a bedrock we'll consider for other needs to depend on, or that could be leveraged on to stand independent. So engaging young people in entrepreneurship, skill development, and business development to reduce unemployment and accelerate economic growth plans will depend on energy as well in this community and other adjacent places within the area. However, other needs were mentioned, were not forgotten. The needs were ranked accordingly: health and well-being, housing, food and security, and other assets. But we did not do detailed analysis of these ones yet, and why they ranked, why access route could have been the list. But that will come up in a separate paper. So detailed analysis of these need hierarchies was outside the scope of this study at the moment, but could be useful in a different context. However, these needs are critical in enhancing microenterprises operations and supporting the realities of energy context, as well as enhancing COVID-19 vaccination awareness protocols, as well as administration in rural communities, especially in places like Wula. So in conclusion, this study assessed the needs of microenterprises in this community, in Wula community in southern part of Cross River State, Nigeria, southern part of Nigeria, with a view to facilitating sustainable energy uptake, understand climate action, and support COVID-19 intervention programs. We found that though there is a perception of energy need from literature, the urgent needs of the community is security by about 23% margin, and education, as well as, of course, energy. But the top need is security at the moment. This has changed literature perception and initial plans for sustainable energy intervention and uptake. However, energy can facilitate security, education provision, and drive all other needs altogether. Right, but due to apprehension, we might want to think security has been ranked first, and of course it justifies the reason why we have to consult with stakeholders before we can, profile solutions to needs to ensure that there is general acceptance or acceptability of this. So overall, the combined needs for security, education, and energy in supporting microenterprises remains crucial due to their interrelatedness and synergy. So we recommend to ourselves that an in-depth multidisciplinary investigation into the security crisis in Wula is needed. This could further promote sustainable energy planning and its uptake within the community. Stakeholders in the community development are expected to leverage sustainable energy potentials to co-create alternatives. So that's we will work with local government and maybe state government to enable them understand the possibilities and, of course, the potentials of sustainable alternatives within this community in their attempt to provide energy that is needed. So future research is expected to evaluate security, education, the nexus between security, education, and energy. We might want to do that even more. And we are concluding that sustainable energy will facilitate security and education solutions, and together could energize the local post-COVID recovery plans, as well as support the UN Sustainable Development Goals, climate action, and sustainable cities. And of course, communities such as Wula and all other adjacent communities in the developing world could benefit from such interventions. So thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And if you have any recommendations or any suggestion you want to make for us to enable us continue with this research successfully, please feel free to let us know. My name is Justin, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Justin. I hope we all have more questions than what we see at the moment. I'll start from the first question for this session, and it was from Rick. The question has been answered partly, but then I think there is more opportunity now. The question by Rick was, are Indian cities increasing their use of trams or other low carbon mass transit? And I see a reply from Aisha already, but then probably she can give another go. Aisha? Are you there? She's around or not? Aisha? Okay, so I'll read the answer she has provided. India is currently at a preliminary stage as far as usage of low carbon measures in mass transit is concerned. Trams are operative only in few metro cities. Now, I would invite Subesh, if Aisha is not around, and maybe he has some insight into this, because I know for smart city projects, there are lots of cities at the moment in the pipeline of this whole agenda.
Yeah, I think Aisha has left. So I think she may not be able to answer now. In the Indian context, I think the smart city is becoming the government has taken a lot of initiatives on that, and moving towards low carbon transport has been one of the main focus of the current government, current regime in power. So I think what they have tried to do is try to increase the PV penetration in the system. So both at the urban level and at standalone PV power generation, that has attracted a lot of attention. Many gigawatts have been now added to the system, and the urban areas, they are moving towards more electric vehicles. It's a range of electrification of the vehicle fleet. So starting from scooters, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and then to four-wheelers as well. So that dimension is moving forward. But public transport, again, there are in major cities, I think the public transport has always been there in India, and the public transport, although it's partly privatized, partly I think state-owned, so that model has a mixed model has operated there. But the conversion of fleet as well as introduction of more environment-friendly mobility, I think, is under consideration. For example, in Delhi, they have introduced the Sky Train or the metro rail, and then many other cities so have introduced as the light rail system, as the urban mass transport system for local levels. And I'm not sure whether the rail network electrification is how far that is going, but there has been initiatives in that regard as well, because India has got a very large railway network as well. So converting and moving towards more electricity-based rail network is also under, I think, consideration there. I don't know whether that answers, but yeah, this is what I can add to this.
Thank you.
While you're answering, I just Googled and saw some plan on the government's rapid transit agenda, and it seems they have planned for 70 cities across the country at the moment. Okay, that is metro kind of style. Okay, let's move to who are here. I think the next question I will straight away go to Ali. And any more question to Ali is invited, but at the moment I just have one. So obviously the model, when you showed, Ali, are you here? Yes, Ali Zamani?
Yes, I'm the conference.
Yeah. So you showed quite a lot of screens which you moved. You scroll through your model section, and then I saw you had some coefficients on the model. I was keen on knowing how did you parameterize them for different constraints in terms of during lockdown and things. I mean, I may not be making full sense, but sure. This is a question.
Yes.
So if you show that screen, which you had the whole kind of linear programming, or what model it was, but then you had some coefficients there, and how did you fit those?
I'm sharing my screen, please. Wait.
Nice.
You have my screen?
Yes.
Yes, this was the model extended. The first equation is objective function that optimizes the input, desirable output, and also undesirable outputs. The first constraint implied the decreasing of input of every stage that should be less than the output of intermediate stage. And other constraints that we used implies the same as the constraint 1, and they are modeled exactly with the logic of this production network. For example, in stage 3, the inputs are electricity and water. They should be less than the water and monoxide carbon. Or here, the water consumption and carbon dioxide should be less than the consumption of this stage.
Can I add some points? And
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Can you return to the model?
Yes,
okay.
Prof.
Okay, great. Actually, this model is a directional DA model, and it is a typical, is existing DA model, and we are trying to adopt this model in terms of the case study. And there is in terms of the factor and the different variables, we have some X and the Y. Is the input and the output of the systems, denoted by X and Y respectively. And also we have a Z in the model is intermediate measures, and it's trying to develop some constraints based on these variables. And also we have two decision variables is a beta and a lambda, and it's some trying to minimize the deviations, and in order to optimize the models, as I said, is a directional network DA model that is already available in the literature, and the paper published in 2009 and in the EJOR. And we are using these models. That the main contributions in these models, we have because in the DA is a benchmarking approach, trying to compare a group of units or production line. And in this model, we would like to focus on the specific company as a DMU, but we are trying to create the different DMU based on the every production day. And that is why if you look at the objective functions, we have 365 DMUs, and is just the performance of the given company every day. Because when we came to the company, the performance is not, or the volume of production is not consistent, and we have some variance, in the different months. And so we are curious to know what's the problem in terms of this approach, and to find the kind of the efficiency analysis approach in order to detect the key problem and in the production process. Because in the DRI approach, it's very complicated process in terms of the different level of gas or energy, and it's not very deterministic approach in order to combine these raw materials in order to reach the specific outcomes, and it can be changed based on the experience. Is a kind of the a typical some people trying to increase some percentage in the specific gas in the different days, and so we have some external variables like the situation of some machine it can be changed, and so it's not very robust approach. But in terms of this analysis, we can determine the efficient days, and so we can conclude which day is the efficient combination. And it's a kind of it's some insight for the efficient way to produce the maximum of production, and it's the main idea in this article.
Thanks, Adel. Now you have informed in detail. I've got one follow-up question before we go to another question on this presentation. When you are doing a kind of a daily input to your model, there may be some factors which have a response time affecting that whatever you are getting as your output, which may be within hours. There may be some which has a delay of 1 or 2 days. Some supply effect could be 1 or 2 days later, whereas some effect could be instantaneous. How do you attribute your outcome to those factors? Because I think what you're saying is you try to relate the performance with the reasons linking why they are happening. So yeah. I think there is a more intricate connection there, because not all of them will have the same time response. But that's something, maybe let's not discuss it, but that's something which I'm interested in now. It's a model you have.
Yeah, I think it's
a complex part.
Yeah, you are correct. It's a kind of lagging in the input and output, and we have the same problems, not specifically in this case study. For instance, if we wish to assess innovation center, and if we are looking for output, is not based on the it's not possible to find the outcome after 1 year. And like our publications, we cannot assess the impact of our publications after 1 year. Probably we can receive some citations in next 5 years. And so we have this lagging, and we can see that these problems in the performance assessment. And then we have the same issue in as you mentioned. And in some situations, probably we can have a look on the weekly production in order to see your point. And so we can have look at the average efficiency based on the weekly analysis, and trying to check with the daily analysis, and to find the bias. And it is a good point. And but this research is an ongoing project, and
that's the next step.
And it is a good point, and we can look at this point as well in order to see what's happening if we change the timing window. And so it is a good point to look at this fact.
Another question on the same presentation was from Letitia. Again, Ali has responded, but I will repeat. It's talking about the role of iron scrap in DRI process, and whether there are some barriers of using iron scrap in the process. So it's already replied, but for everybody else to hear, those who are not following the chat, if Ali could respond again, speak out if you don't want. Ali, are you there? Or maybe you want me to read your reply then? Okay, so Ali says, still in the, sorry, are you going to speak?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
As I answered, steel industry hasn't changed from iron ore concentrate to crude steel. One of the most important components of DRI that was considered in this model was metallization degree, or MD. It has 3 types: less than 88%, between 88% to 89%, and greater than 89%. This is the most important factor for the quality of DRI, that we consider this factor in our model and also in our production network.
Thank you.
And also, I can add as a quick point, and that DRI is as far as I know is a new methodology to produce a steel, and is trying to decarbonize the process, and to reduce the footprint carbon as much as possible. And they're trying to look at it's a kind of the closed loop approach, and they're trying to use the scrap as well as some gas produced by the systems as much as possible, and so trying to contribute to the climate change as much as possible based on this production methodology.
Thanks, Adel, again. Okay, so I think I don't see any more question for Ali, unless there are a few new ones which I haven't looked at. No, it seems not. So we move to Justin now. Right, Justin?
Yes.
And I start with first question because I was panicking. Nobody else was putting questions. So I had made my first question, which I will start with. And that is, means when you said you had involved MSMEs from that region, what was their profile? Were they all energy companies, or what were their profiles?
Okay, yeah, these MSMEs are not energy companies. They are local vendors who work within the community and provide essential services at the community.
But they are MSMEs, are they?
Well, we categorize them as MSMEs, even though they are some kind of sole proprietorship kind of businesses within the community. So they employ 1 or 2 staff. So I don't think by categorization they meet the definition of SMEs. So we put them down to MSMEs, micro enterprises, as we call them. to enable us construct our argument properly. So they include local food vendors, medicine sellers that have shops or medicine shops, those who sell local stores, one-stop stores, and shops like that. So those are the ones who were able to categorize.
They were like retailers or MSMEs?
Retailers majorly.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Because the response would be different if you have different people involved. So security becomes more important if you are facing the customers, I guess, or maybe more into the transactions and things.
Yeah, the issue of security, we I think that's what will go down to other questions. So we are surprised that security became a top issue.
Are you touching the other question? So let me read that.
Okay, let me wait for
the question from Rick, which I was thinking about it. Security problem seems to threaten the deployment of small-scale renewable energy generation, such as small solar PVs. How does this influence the choice of technologies and the scale of installations? Which is a very relevant question in terms of security as well.
Yeah, in terms of security, I think now it's making us now to look at security from two perspectives now. Security in terms of security of the community, and then security of installations. Unfortunately, we don't have a background or expertise in analyzing security issues. So we are now beginning to look at now in what way do we tackle this with my colleagues going forward. Security of installations, which is about the technology, that is fine. Communities can mobilize themselves to provide adequate security. From our own observation on ground, of course we were there. There are no, if I go back to maybe Mark's question again to drag it into this, no more threats between communities. There are no conflicts between neighboring communities or people around that particular location. So we think that if we deploy, be it solar PVs or hydros or any micro off-grid system, it should be able to stand. And our argument and interaction with the community is, well, they will be able to accept these systems and with the youth leaders provide the needed security for the installations, for the technology. But broadly speaking, the security of the community was what I think was a question, which I think is now a problem within, I should say, not just within, nationally in the country. And usually these issues are within rural communities.
Yeah, I think that also overlaps with Mark's question. About the role of community leaders.
And Mark's question now said about if community leaders will be involved. And then I want to say again that we fall short of understanding the conflicts management situation and getting community leaders to be involved. And then that there is no, within that community and its neighbors, no conflict. And so we think that it is a general apprehension from community issue of kidnapping and herders, farmers crisis in other parts that is causing these other communities begin to think that, of course, they need security far more than other needs. So that is our understanding of why that is. But then we know that if in places where that is very relevant and crucial, community leaders are involved, religious leaders are involved, as well as political leaders in dealing with this crisis. And of course, stakeholders like the herders and farmers are usually involved in providing this collaborative discussion in managing this crisis. Mark?
Mark, do you want to ask something, follow up? You're okay with his answer?
I think I just his answer. I don't know whether you were involved in Balaji's project in Nigeria on local energy. I can forward you the dissertation, but a lot of what he found was the role of the community leaders was hugely influential in terms of not only determining what happened, but determining people's responses to the questions that you asked. So, I mean, if this is an issue that you're not encountering, then I think that's really positive from the research point of view.
Yeah. from in that particular community. That question is important, especially in places where these things are happening. But from our own interaction, within an observation, this part of the country is relatively peaceful, and we're able to move around without any fear. So, but like I said, imported apprehension would have caused the result that we now have in a place. And then going back to Rick's question, of course, the community was quite positive, and they were even able to say, if we have to donate some money to secure these systems or to, in a way, maintain them, we are ready to do that. So that community engagement and that readiness is there from our observations and interaction. Okay. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah.
Thanks,
okay,
Justin.
over to the next question, which seems to be more intriguing in terms of Sanover Katak. He asked that the percentages were very close in terms of the differences, and how do you interpret those in terms of your confidence level?
Yes, the percentages are very, very close. I understand that, and that's if I go back towards the conclusion of the presentation, I said yes. While this seems to, in terms of priorities, put security first or put education second, energy still connect. If you are going to have sustainable education, you need energy. If you are going to have security in the place, you will need energy, to power this. If you want to use technologies that will depend on energy in a way, you will need it. Even if it is telecommunication, even if you have physical people providing or policing the community, you will need communication, and then you will need energy. So we categorize. If you see my analysis, I put these three together, and I said there is interdependentness. That's close gap between the percentages now links up with the closeness, the dependentness of these critical needs by each other or with each other. All right. So that is what I will interpret as the reason why we have those close, and not to assume that they are now some kind of twin needs, or is it triplets, I should put it that way, that are needed together with this. And of course, that gives us an idea that we as you argue, we don't need to import solutions without understanding the needs of the community. If we in our position now, we know that while we are going to argue for sustainable energy, we know that there are other two adjacent needs that will connect and, of course, improve the livelihood of both the people, general community, and MSMEs within this local community. So that would be my response to Sinoba's question.
Thanks. And the last question I've seen here is from Ayodele. I would let Ayodele speak, because there is an element which I don't clearly understand the last part of it. So Ayodele, please, can you ask directly? Yeah.
Good. Justin, thanks for your presentation. What I was saying here is that given the context you're looking at, I can clearly relate with. I can relate to the issue in terms of security. But what I was thinking of is, have you had the opportunity to look to other forms of intervention to see how the subject of security is being handled? So you approach this subject purely from an energy point of view. Have we looked at intervention in other spheres? Like, there are medical interventions going on there. There are medical teams that go out to rural communities to provide to conduct surgical operations and stuff like that. Have you looked at the model they use in terms of how they manage the security issue?
At the moment, a straight response is no. Because remember, like you rightly said, when we were going, our idea was fixed a little bit, but somewhere we said we need to do this assessment to understand more things. And then security issue is popping up to our own surprise. So it is, if you look at my last recommendation, I'm suggesting an in-depth interdisciplinary investigation to understand the nexus. And that probably will now link us to seeing other models which people who administer, let's say, malaria vaccination, for instance, what strategies or approaches do they use and people who, even if it is other traders and people around who do most of these things and get into this community, approaches and strategies they use will be of help to us in trying now to push our own program through. But at the moment we are short of that. So this is an outcome that is giving us an opportunity to now rethink the overall strategy and model which we are going to implement or drive our project through successfully in the community. So thank you for re-echoing that anyway.
I think with this we will have a close means we don't have any more question. But my suggestion, I mean, one thing which I note from this presentation from Justin is especially people who are think tanks and UN bodies or framework bodies sitting in European countries, the level of importance from local surveys and things like that gets more relevant in terms of policy making and strategizing the needs, because maybe we think climate change is only about energy. There may be several factors which have to be built in because the costs of real translation on the ground may be much expensive in that time. Thanks for the session and those who attended. I will close, and I know Ms. Subesh, if you want to take over for the next part. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, that brings us to the end of the paper presentation sessions. We'll have a break for lunch, and then in the afternoon we will have the panel discussion with 3 external panelists. So I thank you all for your participation in the morning session, and I hope you will join back in the afternoon session for a lively discussion. And this would be on building back better, so how COVID recovery could be used for better building of cities and maybe the nations. So I look forward to seeing you in that second half of the conference. But thank you to the chairs, and thank you to all the presenters for that effort and for the lively presentations, and the audience, those who have joined, who managed to join from different parts for this first session. I hope you will be able to join in the second half as well. So yeah, I'll stop the video recording now, and then the platform will be open so you can interact and discuss. But I'll start the recording maybe from 1:15 to 1:20, around that time. So we'll be back. I'll be back at around 1:15. But we'll start the panel session at 1:30. Okay, see you soon.